Hall of Fame columnist John McClain with us on 365 Sports, and he's with us on Tuesdays. I saw John Saturday evening at the Texas Sports Hall of Fame induction at the base at the Extraco Events Center. John, thanks for your time. Paul, Craig, and Smokey. Man, that was a hell of an event. That's a heck of a class that was inducted. I know Jose Cruz and then also Robert Brazil meant a lot to you, but what a night.
It was the most distinct Houston flavor of any class in the Texas Sports Hall of Fame history. Cynthia Potter, the great diver, 3 Olympics, would have been 4, an analyst. I just found out she was Mattress Mac's first wife. That was a long time ago. And I didn't know it, or I would have asked her about it. And then Carla Guidry Parkway, she was from Houston, both the women from Houston. Adrian Peterson lives here. Only Scott Drew and Priest Holmes don't have a Houston connection. Scott, of course, was hilarious as always. And I thought the Bay Center, I didn't even know what it was. And then somebody said it's Coliseum. I said, what Coliseum? Coliseum where Baylor used to play. I said, you're kidding me. That's right across the street where I grew up. We used to walk across Lake Air and go to all the games. It was fabulous. And the people at the Hall of Fame, like Jay Black, Krista Martin, Genesis Moncada, they and the other staffers did a tremendous job. Brad Sham always does a great job as the master's ceremony. It's so much fun to see so many former Oilers there to support Robert Brazil, but seeing so many friends. And I brought a friend who hadn't been to that, and I was talking to Jim Haller and his wife Judy. Jim Haller was the first person that I ever did a story on. I was at MCC, and I took a class in mass communications because people said it was easy. And I was a terrible student at Richfield. It took me like 5 years to get out. And so I took this class, and the head of journalism, when I found out you get in ball games for free, I never had any idea. I went to her to talk to her about it, and she said, did you write for your school paper? I said, oh, yes, ma'am, I did. She said, well, good. She said, our new basketball coach is over to Jim. Why don't you go interview him and do a story for the next edition of the Highland Herald, which came out once a week? So I couldn't say. I didn't even know how to type. I'd never interviewed anybody. I'd never written anything except book reports. So I went over and interviewed Jim. That's how far back Jim Haller and I go, and it was great seeing so many people there.
John, we are just over a week out of the NFL draft, and there's still some big, questions out there. But now that Jalen Hurts has signed his big deal, do you think that that's good or bad for Lamar Jackson and the Ravens?
It is a great deal for Jalen Hurts, but it's not worth the paper it's written on, $255 million. It's all about guarantees, what you get the first 3 years. And it's not as big as a couple, but it just shows you if you have an agent, you're not greedy and unrealistic, you can get by on $179 million guaranteed. And it hurts his age. In 4 years, he's going to be doing another deal. Quarterbacks today are playing into their late 30s. That's why Lamar Jackson was foolish not to take that guaranteed deal. He admitted he was offered $40 million a year for 3 years. Had he taken that deal and had them put in a stipulation he would not be franchised when he was up, he'd be unrestricted at 29. If he played great, was MVP again, they could sign him to an extension in 2 years. He has made an egregious error not having an agent. And Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert are going to be next. Whoever signs next is going to get less than the other one. And I think in about another year, we'll probably see the Chiefs tear up Patrick Mahomes' contract. That will be the second fully guaranteed contract to Deshaun Watson.
John, just your thoughts on Jalen Hurts' rise in general. I mean, the guy has an obvious chip on his shoulder. There's all the talk about, getting benched in the national championship game and stuff like that. But second-round pick just a couple years back after a great career at Alabama and Oklahoma, and now in this position. Just what are your thoughts on the Eagles going all in with him and just his quick rise?
Craig, in 2021, when Deshaun Watson was held out, and they started fielding offers from other teams, and he had a no-trade clause. One of the first teams to call was Philadelphia. That shows you what they thought of Jalen Hurts. They don't say anything about that now. Watson had his people instruct the Eagles he was not interested in coming to Philadelphia. And how lucky are they? How lucky is he? Because we thought at the time they're going to try to include Jalen Hurts in this trade, and he hadn't done anything to be worthy of being traded in the Deshaun Watson deal. And he's worked hard. He deserves everything he's gotten. And I'm being from Houston, and I first heard about him when he was at Channelview High School. Happy for him. His dad, his father is a high school coach or was a high school coach. It's just great for him because he's a great guy, and he's earned it the hard way. Being benched at Alabama, going to Oklahoma, being a second-round pick, just shows you don't have to be a high number one pick to make out like a bandit.
No, it's a great story. It seems to be just a humble and yet, like Craig said, a chip on his shoulder, an amazing competitor. His story has been fantastic. So the Astros are off to a little bit of a shaky start. They'll be fine. Altuve's out. They've got some players out. But was there any kind of murmur on what and how good the Rangers at least have started the season, or is that just a fly on their back?
The Astros were 6-7 3 years for the third consecutive year. Now, when they started slow in the past, they had Jose Altuve and Michael Brantley. Altuve is supposed to be back in June. The general manager, Dana Brown, said today that he might be back sooner. That's the same Dana Brown that was optimistic in spring training about signing Alex Bregman, Jose Altuve, Framber Valdez, and Kyle Tucker to extensions, and none of them have signed. He has had a habit in his first year of getting people fired up and then nothing happening. I hope he's right. But Mauricio Dubon, who they acquired from the Giants last year, is hitting 340-something, and we're wondering when he'll come back down to earth. And they've had some other guys. Corey Julks, who was a University of Houston player, who's bounced around their minor leagues after being drafted, after coming to the franchise in 17. He's been really good in left field. And so they've gotten some other performances. Hunter Brown, their rookie pitcher, has been outstanding, 2-0 with his last two starts. So the pitching hasn't been as great as we thought it would be with the guys who come back, but they still should have the best bullpen in baseball, even though their closer Ryan Presley's hurt right now, and even though Alex Bregman is not hitting the way he should, and Jose Abreu, their new acquisition, finally hit a ball hard. It wasn't a single last night. He had been a big disappointment, but it turns out he started slow every year with the White Sox. So it's no time to panic. I tell you, if I'm the Rangers, what I'm worried about, Jacob deGrom's already hurt.
Yeah, there was pretty good news today, though. I thought I saw something flash on my timeline that he's going to be okay. I when that story popped, you're like, uh-oh, there he is again. But apparently it doesn't appear as if he's going to miss any time, because that did seem like – because he is obviously very much injury-prone.
You keep – and they're major injuries, too. And anytime you see anything happen with him, you worry because he's missed so much time. He's a great pitcher. When he's healthy, they invested a lot of money gambling that he can stay healthy, which he was unable to do his last couple of years with the Mets. But, you know, as long as he's in that rotation, they're capable of beating anybody. And they won that series over the Astros, who won the series, the Silver Boot, for the last 6 years.
John, do you think that – I know there's a new bid on the Commanders. I want to get to this before I forget. But do you think that the Josh Harris one will be the ultimate one that they take?
Yes, it's for $6.05 billion. Somehow Daniel Snyder's coaxed an extra $50 million out of them. And that new bid by the former North Carolina basketball player, I haven't seen anything that said how he made his money. And now there's a story that he's backed by Saudi money. And I don't think that the NFL owners will be like the live golfers and go for the blood money. I just don't see that.
John, how are you feeling about the Texans sitting at number 2 right now?
I would have thought up until last week, Craig, they're taking a quarterback, probably C.J. Stroud. Now there's stories locally and nationally. They've soured on Stroud, and they're going to take Will Anderson Jr. or Tyree Wilson. They need an edge rusher desperately. D'Amico Ryans, former defensive coordinator. I thought they'd take a quarterback at 2, an edge rusher at 12, a wide receiver at 33, and then they would be getting off to a great start in the draft at filling 3 of their biggest needs. And if they want one of those 2 guys, you know, Tyree Wilson's been injured and hadn't been able to work out. And he didn't do at Texas Tech what Will Anderson Jr. did at Alabama. So you're kind of gambling on his potential. And if you do that with the 2nd overall pick, man, oh man, you know, he better be better than Jadeveon Clowney, who never had 10 sacks as the 1st overall pick. They've had the 1st overall pick 3 times. David Carr, Mario Williams, and Jadeveon Clowney. They were all drafted 1st overall. None finished their career with the Texans. And I'd rather see Will Anderson Jr. if they were not going to take a quarterback. And if they get out of the 1st round without taking a quarterback, people here, and I say fans, media, they're going to be livid. They're going to be crushed. And all that goodwill they built up with Miko Ryans, that's going to evaporate. So that's why in the last mock draft, I haven't taken Hendon Hooker at 12. His stock's going up. And if they don't take a quarterback, we immediately, on Friday, we're going to start saying they need to go after Lamar Jackson.
Oh, okay. That would be interesting. No. Hey, Adrian Peterson was one of those inducted on Saturday evening. He was very humble, had a great crowd that was there with him. He actually played, I thought later, I didn't realize he played after the 2020 season. Is he going to be a first ballot guy?
Absolutely. He's one of the greatest running backs in history. He lives in Houston. And I don't know any reason Adrian Peterson wouldn't make it on the first ballot.
Yeah, 14,918 yards and 120 touchdowns in his career. He was a beast at every level. It was cool. Some of the people that were there, Earl, who said to me one time that Robert Brazile was the best player he ever played with, and then also Larry Durker, among others. That was going back to that banquet. That was so much fun, John.
It was fun. They put on a great show. The food was great. You know, I think it was catered by George's, same as Toronto, with food always fabulous. And I thought the people at the base, the people that got the food out and took care of you, they were so good, and they were friendly, and they were upbeat. It just was a spectacular program. I've been talking about it on all my shows across the state, and I tweeted like crazy about it. It was so much fun. It's going to be really hard, David, for us to come up with a class that's as good or better than that one. It's a challenge, and I hope we can meet it.
Yeah, it's going to be hard. Every year in June we meet to do that. They do need to work on the speaker system. They need to work on the audio. It seems to be a little bit hollow and a little bit distant. Did you agree?
Well, some of it I was sitting on the 3rd row and I could hear, and others I couldn't. Most of the time I was just BSing with people around me and eating. And I did not drink anything but iced tea. And I did a lot of stuff. I had written a column on Robert Brazile about it. And then I did a lot of stuff with Jose Cruz, Michael Strahan. You know, Michael Strahan, another one from Houston. Mm-hmm. Michael was a big hit. And he's so comfortable in front of a microphone, and he should be, because he spends most of his life in front of a microphone and cameras.
He is a rock star now. He is like, how many, like OJ became that way. There are some others, but as far as pro sports athletes that became broadcasters, and he has gone to where he's almost his own company in a way.
Well, yeah, he does. I mean, like, he only does a little bit of football. Like, that's only
he
little bit of
the Fox show. Is that right? The pregame show.
Yeah, go ahead. He's on Fox. He's on the USFL. He's on Good Morning America or whatever. You know, some people don't even realize he played football, and they think, "Oh, that guy from the morning show," and he was on with what's her name in the morning that Ryan Seacrest is on with now?
Kelly Ripa.
Kelly Ripa, he was on with her. So he gets a certain audience there. Then he goes, Good Morning America. That's another kind of audience. And he capitalized on New York post-career better than any athlete in history. Frank Gifford was another one, but he didn't transcend sports into the rest of the media world like Strahan does. And Strahan's come a long way with that gap in his teeth, because that's his trademark, has been forever. And he's a really funny guy. He's a good guy. You know, he right off the bat said Waco was beautiful, I think. And I think there were two of them that said Waco was beautiful. And it was, he knows how to captivate an audience, and he did a tremendous job. I got to sit next to a guy, Steve Fallon, who did the voiceovers and the introduction. And when Robert Brazil came on, right before he had his introductory videos, I leaned over to Steve and I said, "You're about to get blown out of the base." And he's like, "Huh? What?" And then they showed me introducing Brazil, and he said, "You're right. I got blown out of the base." I said, "It wasn't the first time I've blown you out going back to high school, and it won't be the last."
John, thank you very much. Baylor men's
Thank
basketball.
you, guys. Sick 'em.
You too, Sick 'em. Baylor men's basketball.